We begin tonight with Hurricane Katrina, which could be among the biggest storms ever to hit this country.
Hurricane Katrina is now a Category 5 hurricane.
It is supposed to hit New Orleans, a low-lying city surrounded by water, a possible worst-case scenario. They're calling for mandatory evacuations.
This is a threat that we have never faced before. God bless us.
There was no electricity. There was no water. There were no commodities. There was a wasteland.
Hurricane Katrina was a particular event where human flourishing was catastrophically interfered with. People ask, how can a good God allow such things to happen?
You ought to question God, because if he doesn't have the answer, then he's not God.
The intent of the project is to explore the influence of the faith beliefs of survivors from Hurricane Katrina, looking specifically at three kinds of relationships: their relationships with God, their relationships with the community, and the relationship with the natural environment.
My personal home was destroyed with more than 7 feet of water. My father's home was also destroyed. 2 of my sister's homes were destroyed.
80% of the city was flooded and underwater. Nobody really knows how many people got swept out to sea.
I was the pastor of the Legion Fields Avenue Baptist Church, and our building was destroyed. It was just hard to believe what was going on, to realize that everything I owned was now in a suitcase.
We were gone from August, and we didn't get back until November, and that was just to come and see. They call it a drive in and drive back out. It took my breath away, because the house was off the foundation, flattened. All the houses here, the church was gone, destroyed. We had about 120 people in the congregation, and a lot of them were youth, and we just couldn't reach them at all.
Human suffering, in one sense, of course, is measured by pain. And pain in itself is not just physical pain, but measured more in terms of psychological pain, spiritual pain, the anguish that is caused by the shock immediately of what happened, this catastrophic inundation, coping with the initial shock of survival, and then coping with the sense of loss.
And so many people were sick at the convention center, and they were dying before the television cameras. And so it was just a very traumatic and sad situation.
If it's claimed, as it is in the Abrahamic faith, that God is a God of love who cares for people and so on, and that people go through these terrible experiences of suffering, I mean, clearly that raises big questions about theology, about how you cope with that and so on. So I think tackling those kind of questions is always important.
My saddest and most difficult moment was where we had our city morgue, and we had taken a large convoy of ministers so that we could prayerfully, respectfully release the dearly departed to God. And that was a very trying moment because there were so many bodies.
The notion that Katrina did what it did to New Orleans destructively was God's punishment for New Orleans being such a naughty city, if you like. I think is absurd. As many people in New Orleans would say, well, if God was punishing the city for its naughtiness, then he didn't have a very good aim, because it was largely the very poor people that suffered.
I was crying and saying, God, speaking to God, what was going on.
Each and every one of us at some point confront a tragedy that we cannot understand. We ask ourselves that question, why me, Lord?
In the wake of Katrina, I conducted in the region of 150 interviews. By far the greater majority of those interviewees, I found hardly any anger toward God. In a catastrophe where everything is shaken and overwhelmed, there's this one dimension to their lives that they feel has remained solid, and that is their relationship with God.
He spoke to me. He said, I got this. And I never was concerned or disjointed or overwhelmed by it anymore.
We live in a fallen world that has disasters, and I have an unshaken faith that God is with us even in those disasters.
Suffering is a fact of life, and that in itself does give such people a foundation, if you like, upon which they can build. It can even be shaken to the extent that people can get angry with God. But it isn't anger that leads them to disbelief. It's an anger that says, well, I don't understand why you, God, would do this to me. But I know you well enough to know that you have a purpose in this.
I don't have a problem with people who do ask why. I trust him in the midst of it and just want to follow him in the middle of these disasters.
You may not get an answer, but you will get the guidance that you need, the encouragement that you need to keep moving forward. Every day we walk into a day of purpose. We wake up with the Lord and we go forward in His grace and in His strength. And we do battle with the forces that are negative, and we are grateful for the forces that are positive.
You have an influx of new people into the area. Communities and relationships in community are having to be rebuilt.
I saw people come together. I saw divisions break down and walls torn down because of this.
Well, everybody went through it, rich and poor. We all faced the same thing. So I think just that in itself helped us realize that it doesn't matter. Your class, your race, your economic status. When disaster occurs, we all face it, and we all have to get through it, and we best help each other through it.
We are a faith-filled people. The true integrity and character of a person is born and forged when a person is able to put aside their needs and run to the needs of another person whom they don't even know to make a difference for their stability.
Churches, individuals, families came in by the tens of thousands and gutted houses, rebuilt houses. When our church came back together for the first time in January of 2007, we had 24 people back, and we met together in a cold, gutted house, but it was the warmest service I've ever been in.
I am coming increasingly to the view that there are no such things actually as natural disasters. There are natural events, earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods. Our scientific and sociological evidence, if you like, is showing to us that these disasters are humanly caused. They're not natural. And that puts, therefore, a different take and perspective on natural evil. Is there such a thing as natural evil? It's unthinkable that God would create evil. So the whole concept of natural evil is not something that resonates easily with the scientific evidence, the sociological evidence, or in our view, a proper theological interpretation. The whole existence of New Orleans depends upon its artificial levee system. And of course, what we learned, or are learning from Katrina, is that that levee system was not built to its requisite standard, and it wasn't maintained to its requisite standard.
I think there was a lot of anger at the Corps of Engineers.
My focus is not to blame, but simply to say that levees could have been higher. And out of Katrina, we've armored our levees, we've raised our pumping stations.
When you're reducing the wetlands, nature's natural storm absorbance at the rate at which they are being denuded, then that's suicidal. That's asking for big trouble. And it's human beings that are doing that. It's not nature that's doing that.
Mother Nature is greater than us, but at the same time, trust God. Trust God. Trust Him. That's faith. And you have to do your part. What do we need to do to maintain the levees? Our faith says, can God restore? And looking at His record, He can, and He has. We started having service every Sunday in our home. We opened up our house because this was the only place that we could have worship. This is not our house, this is God's house.
Losing your home, losing your childhood home, losing all that you treasured, you know, all of your valuables, all of your memories, your pictures, you know, your 20 stylish hats, all of those personal things. Through your tears, you let that go. You begin to reprioritize human relationships, family, spoken word, kind notes, emails, phone calls, those things that speak of my connectivity to you and my caring about you become important.
If you define resilience as the capacity to resist or to bounce back, resilience has been tested here because particularly in the African American communities where there was huge evacuations, it has not been easy for them to return. But I think if you measure resilience by the fact that we survived and we're still going and we're still people of hope, we've not given up hope and we've still got something to live for, then yes, they're resilient.
I believe the resilience begins from a foundation of faith and of determination and of history. Many families that endured Katrina were historic New Orleanians, and there was a connectivity particularly in the historic Lower Ninth Ward where Mama lived around the corner from Big Mama and Auntie was 2 blocks away. So that relationship of connectivity where you were undergirded by the support of your family or your extended family brings a determination to go back and rebuild.
And they continue to be there as happy, flourishing citizens, still ingrained with the memory of Katrina, but not devastated by it, not broken by it in their spirit and in their hope. And that's the kind of thing which I've seen across the communities that I've been working with.
People still shed tears. There may be a new house where the old house was standing, but it doesn't have Mama. It doesn't have Auntie. And so there is a sorrow in the heart. But the people of New Orleans move on.
For many of the participants that I encountered here in New Orleans, their faith was historic. It was deeply embedded within their worldview and within their daily life.
There's a new sense of brotherly kindness, brotherly love that is here now, because we realize it could happen again. But I think the new normal involves a new sense of concern for our brother and sister in community.
You have to believe for a brighter future. You have to hope and pray and trust that tomorrow will indeed reflect some good out of all the tragedy and suffering that you endured and you experienced. You have to have a perspective that reflects a fervor for life and a mission of service and hope in bringing about change that benefits others. I think it all emanates from faith in a God